Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Ultimate Bucket List, and this is your complete guide to the city of Edinburgh. Where to go, what to do, where to eat, and how to have the most amazing time in one of the most cultured cities in all of Europe. Welcome to the Scottish capital. It's an amazing city full of history, culture, and things to do. However, unlike most other major cities, it also has a very gruesome history that's actually quite fun to explore. This is going to be quite a long video, but after watching this, you'll know the city of Edinburgh inside and out before you actually visit, so pay close attention. Let's start by having a look at a map of Edinburgh, and there's two main areas that you need to be concerned about. This section is the Old Town, full of old cobble streets and old buildings, and this area, the New Town, full of modern looking buildings and very straight roads. The main road that runs through the Old Town is collectively known as the Royal Mile, and the main road that runs through the New Town is known as Princes Street. If you know where you are in relation to these two areas, you will never get lost here in Edinburgh. It's a very walkable city, with plenty of notable landmarks so that you know where you are at all times. You'd have to try really hard in order to get lost in this city. Having said that, if you want to visit every single attraction, you'll be doing a considerable amount of walking. I suppose I better start by showing you the most visited and most famous attraction here in Edinburgh. This is world famous Edinburgh Castle. You really can't miss it because it's an ancient castle built on top of a hill slap bang in the middle of the city that you can see from literally miles away. As one of Europe's oldest fortified buildings, it used to be a royal residence, a military garrison, a prison, amongst other things. Nowadays it's mainly a tourist attraction, but it's a nice fun tourist attraction to go into. From every angle, the place looks pretty amazing, and you get some absolutely stellar views from anywhere around the castle grounds. And the exterior of the castle itself, well, it's really nice. Even though it's a fairly ancient castle, it's still largely intact, i.e. it's not really crumbling away. The history oozes from its walls. Especially if you're here to see the military tattoo, it provides a stunning backdrop in which to watch one of the world's most famous events. If the military tattoo isn't actually on, feel free to pay for a tour of the place. You'll get to see and explore most of the castle grounds. It's all very cool from the outside, but to be honest, the best things are literally inside the castle. You get to see the ornate interiors, its own on-site church, and where the Scottish royal family used to live when they were here at Edinburgh Castle. There's some pretty awesome rooms to see, such as the Great Dining Hall. And right in here inside the clock tower, you'll find Scotland's most priceless jewellery. It's none other than the Scottish Crown Jewels. These traditionally belonged to the royal family of Scotland, and they're almost as impressive as the English Crown Jewels that I saw at the Tower of London. Inside you'll get to learn a lot about the history of the Scottish royal family, and how they eventually amalgamated themselves with the English royal family. But come to Edinburgh Castle around about noon, because right at the top of the castle is one of the most famous things that Edinburgh is famous for. This is the 1 o'clock gun, and it blasts at exactly 1 o'clock to let people know that it is indeed 1 o'clock. Just like that. So when you leave Edinburgh Castle, you're literally at the start of the Royal Mile, and almost immediately you'll get to see some uniquely Scottish things. Like the tartan weaving mill, where you can have Scottish tartan weaved for you. Buy some swords and a suit of armour, if you want to. You'll also come across two attractions that might be worth visiting. The first is Camera Obscura, which is an optical illusion themed attraction. It's actually pretty fun, sometimes it's a little dizzying, but overall you'll have a good time here. You also get to see the entire city from its rooftop. And right across the street you'll find the Scotch Whisky Experience. I love this place because I'm a fan of Scotch whisky. In here you'll get to learn all about how they make it, how they distribute it, how to taste it, have a look at the world's largest collection of Scotch whisky, and when you finish your tour you actually get to enjoy a few drams overlooking the city of Edinburgh, which is pretty damn fun. And even if you're not a fan of Scotch whisky, it's definitely worth checking out. Anyway, before you carry on down the Royal Mile, turn right and head down a street called Grassmarket. This long cobbled street, with its curved and colourful buildings, is probably one of the most photographed streets in all of Edinburgh. But that's not the attraction I want you to see. I want you to go into this public square here with this nice view of the castle. The reason why this public square is so important is because this is the place where they used to hang people in public. So if you committed a crime, you'd be hanged at this exact spot. Strange that they'd memorialise that, but you know, when in Scotland I guess. Anyway, back onto the Royal Mile, and you'll notice some really ancient buildings, lots of Scottish shops for you to buy things like kilts and socks, and lots of other Scottish wear. You'll also find bagpipers playing along the Royal Mile. It's pretty awesome to listen to. But about halfway down the Royal Mile, you'll come across this big giant church. This is none other than St Giles Cathedral. It's free to go inside, and it's a pretty sizable cathedral. It's pretty ornately decorated. Whilst it's not the biggest or the most lavish cathedral that you'll ever visit if you're here in the United Kingdom, because there's lots of them, it's definitely worth checking out whilst you're here on the Royal Mile. Eventually, once you get to the end of the Royal Mile, you'll come across this uber modern building. This is the Scottish Parliament. This is where the Scottish Government does all of its business. Technically, you can go inside and watch the proceedings, but unless you're super into politics, I highly recommend that you don't do that. When you get to the end of the Royal Mile, you'll come across the other royal attraction. This is the Palace of Holyrood House, and this is the Queen's official residence when she's here in Edinburgh. It's closed for 1 week during the summer when the Queen is actually in residence, and you can also tell she's here when the Queen's Guard march all the way down the Royal Mile just like this. But most of the time, the Queen isn't here and you're free to take a tour of the place. I'm not going to cover it in any great detail because I'll be making a future video about it, but in short, you'll get to see and experience a lot to do with the royal family. Where they used to live, what they do with it now. You get to visit things like the throne room and the main dining room. It's all very, very interesting, and do you know what? A little bit overwhelming. There's so much stuff in here that you really need to see, and you definitely need at least a few hours in order to see everything here at the Palace of Holyrood House. They even have their own on-site art gallery, which is pretty cool. Opposite the palace, you'll find this big giant park space that's officially known as Holyrood Park. If you want to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city, it's a nice hiking spot, but most people and most locals know this as Arthur's Seat. Arthur's Seat refers to this tall bit right here, and believe it or not, it's an inactive volcano. Don't worry, you're perfectly safe, it's not going to blow anytime soon. It's quite a considerable hike to get to the top, but when you do, you're rewarded with some of the most gorgeous views over the city of Edinburgh. It's definitely well worth the climb. Whilst you're sat on Arthur's Seat, you'll notice another hill in the distance with what looks like a giant tower on it. This is none other than world famous Calton Hill. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it houses the National Monument, the Nelson Monument, the Robbie Burns Monument, and it also has its own observatory on site. So think of this as the Scottish version of Greenwich. And once again, because it's high on a hill, you get some gorgeous views over the city of Edinburgh. Now at this point of the video, you're probably getting quite hungry. Fortunately for you, Edinburgh is a mecca for foodies and people who enjoy food. Don't go to any of the obvious places, try and get something uniquely Scottish. Namely this dish, Haggis, Neeps and Tatties. Haggis is lamb's entrails boiled in its own stomach, neeps, which is mashed up turnips or swedes, and tatties, which is Scottish slang for mashed potatoes. It looks disgusting, but it's really nice, and if you've never had it before, I highly recommend that you find a place to try it. Also, if you happen to spot a fish and chip shop, go in and ask for a deep fried Mars bar. It sounds disgusting, but you won't regret it. So once you've climbed back down Calton Hill, you're literally on Princes Street, aka the start of the new town. And on Princes Street, it's very similar to any other modern city that you'll find here in Europe, with some significant differences. The largest thing that you'll find on Princes Street is Edinburgh Waverley train station. Okay, it's a train station, it's not really a tourist attraction, but the fact that the main train station is slap bang in the middle of the city means that it's easy to get in and out of the city, especially if you're arriving from a different part of the country. Right outside Waverley Station, you'll find this giant Scots monument, dedicated to one of Scotland's most famous writers, Sir Walter Scott. It's a pretty impressive structure in its own right. Right next to the Scott monument is the Scottish National Gallery. It's a lovely art gallery to whittle away the hours if you're into art. Also a street away is the Scottish National Portrait Gallery. Please note that these are two different museums in two different buildings. And rather confusingly, all of the art galleries here in Edinburgh are very similarly named. So if there is one that you're specifically after, make sure that you're in the right one and at the right building. If you're getting a little tired of seeing attractions, the Princes Street Gardens are slap bang in the middle of the city, and it's a nice green space to just chill out, have a picnic and take it easy for a little bit. If you carry on walking down Princes Street, you won't find any shortage of bars, pubs and restaurants, but right at the end of Princes Street is possibly the most famous bar of them all. This is none other than Johnnie Walker. For those of you who don't know, Johnnie Walker is the most consumed brand of Scotch whisky in the world, and they've opened up a new attraction right here at the end of Princes Street. Even though it's housed in an old building, it's a super modern attraction, where you'll learn the history of Johnnie Walker, how they make whisky, enjoying whisky whilst there's lots of live bands and musicians on, and feel free to have a fancy meal and a drink at the rooftop bar to complete your tour. It's certainly worth a visit if you are a fan of Scotch whisky. But as night falls and the sun sets over Edinburgh's hills, the entire city starts to glow like a Christmas tree. It's a very pretty city at night, and lots of things get illuminated just like this. So if you're a photographer or videographer, don't be surprised if you come to Edinburgh and it looks pretty much exactly like what you see here. It's a great night out, so if you're looking to party or drink or indeed get drunk, this is a cool place in which to do it. Literally pick up a rock and throw it, and you'll probably come across a fun bar and make lots of friends and have a great time. But if you're not a drinker like me and you want to explore some other cool things, there's one fact about Edinburgh that you really need to know. It's one of the most haunted places in the world. Yes, they call this place the City of the Dead. And there are lots of attractions that cash in on this fact. First and foremost, Real Mary King's Close. It's staged on an actual Edinburgh street, so this is what it would have looked like back in the day. You've got live actors and live performances telling you about the grisly and gruesome history of Edinburgh streets. It's pretty educational and is fairly fun, and I highly recommend that you actually do this at night. But if that's a bit soft for you, there's something a little bit more extreme. This is the Edinburgh Dungeon. No, it's not a fetish club. It's a tourist attraction where live actors come and scare the bejesus out of you, all whilst trying to entertain you. It sounds a bit of a strange concept, but it's actually a lot of fun, and I recommend that you do this as part of a group of friends, especially when they pick on that one friend that's absolutely scared of everything. Out of all the gruesome things to do, possibly the ghost tours are the most fun here in Edinburgh. What you probably don't know about the city of Edinburgh is that there's an entire city literally underneath those streets. This is where traditionally the poor of the city used to live, and it's a pretty creepy place. And when you go on a ghost tour, they'll take you to places that isn't open to the public. And yes, everything in it is pretty creepy. The best tours are done by a company called Mercat, where they'll have a guide that will guide you around these haunted streets telling you ghost stories, and then they'll literally finish off the tour in one of the two most famous graveyards in all of Edinburgh. This is the Canongate Kirkyard, very creepy, especially at night, and especially when someone's telling you ghost stories, or the Greyfriars Kirkyard, home to the famous Greyfriars Bobby. It's not so scary in the daylight. Now, some of you watching this video are watching it purely because you're coming to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. For those of you who don't know what it is, it's a world famous 3-week festival full of artists, actors, performers, musicians, performing for free for your entertainment. It's usually a place that people come to try and get discovered. It usually happens over 3 weeks in August, and as you can imagine, everything in the city starts to get super expensive. Particularly hotels and attractions, they all seem to bump up their price whenever the Fringe Festival is on. So bear that in mind if you are coming to Edinburgh in August, it's going to be super expensive. That said, it's actually quite a nice party atmosphere here in Edinburgh when the Fringe Festival is on. It's definitely worth visiting once in your life. But if you're not into arts, you might be into sports, and Edinburgh is home to some famous stadiums. The first is Easter Road, home of the Hibernian Football Club. Located on the north side of the city, they play in green. On the west side of the city are their arch rivals, the Hearts of Midlothian. They play in maroon, and both of these teams absolutely hate each other. If you manage to catch a game with both of them playing each other, it definitely comes highly recommended. But if you don't like football, Edinburgh is also home to the largest stadium in all of Scotland. This is Murrayfield, and it's home to the national Scottish Rugby Union team. Once again, if you can score Scotland rugby tickets, it's a good shindig, but if Scotland aren't playing, it's definitely worth a tour of the place. Check out my future video here to see what the home of Scottish rugby is actually like. Also on the north side of the city, you'll find Edinburgh Zoo. Yes, it's very similar to most other zoos that you'll find in the world, except that this one is home to red pandas and giant pandas, the only zoo in the country to actually have them. Yay, pandas! Not too far away is the Royal Botanical Gardens, so if you want to get away from the city and enjoy lots of greenery and flowers, one of the largest botanical gardens in the country is literally right here. It's an amazing place full of nature, and is very similar to the botanical gardens I saw at Kew Gardens and Palace. If you visited Calton Hill, you'll probably notice a dockyard area to the north. This is the area of Edinburgh known as Leith. There's really not that much to it, but the one attraction that you might want to visit is the Royal Yacht Britannia. This is the Queen's personal yacht that is moored permanently here in Edinburgh. And here you'll get to experience what it's like to be royalty on the high seas. You'll get to see where the Queen sleeps, you get to see the honeymoon suite, and you can even dine in the Queen's dining room if you want to. Overall, it's a nice experience, especially if you've come to the United Kingdom to experience royal attractions. Overall guys, you won't be bored here in Edinburgh. As you can tell from this video, there's plenty of things to see and do and experience. If you're umming and ahhing as to whether or not to visit Edinburgh, don't hesitate. You'll enjoy the history, the culture, the attractions, and the warm welcome of the people in one of the most unique cities that you'll ever visit. Okay Nin, I'm sold. What do I need to do? Well, you'll need to come here to Edinburgh. The nearest international airport is Edinburgh International, and the main train station, as earlier mentioned, is Edinburgh Waverley. There's many great public transport links. For example, the tram line goes directly from the city to the airport, and there are plenty of buses that will take you places also. From the airport, it's bus number 100. To use the public transportation, it's easy to buy tickets from these electronic turnstiles here. Simply follow the instructions, pay for your ticket and away you go. Driving in Edinburgh is highly not recommended, not just because the traffic is terrible, but because there's also very few places to park. So it's better to use public transportation to get in and then just walk around the city. If you're looking for a place to stay, well, you'll be in shock because the hotels here in Edinburgh are incredibly expensive. If you're on a tight budget, I recommend that you stay out of town and get public transportation in, because the hotels here in Edinburgh are some of the most expensive in all of Europe. If money isn't any object, I recommend that you stay here at the Apex on Grassmarket, where your rooms have a lovely view of Edinburgh Castle, and having stayed here myself, I can personally attest that you'll experience service second to none. The general cost of the city of Edinburgh is fairly reasonable. It's pretty much on par with any other major European capital city these days. But if you're looking to do all of the attractions as I mentioned in this video, well, it can quickly add up. And also, on-site parking at any attraction is rare. So if you are driving, and remember, I recommend that you don't, but if you are, you're going to have to park it up at an NCP car park somewhere. Is there anything else? Yes, Edinburgh becomes a stupidly expensive city when the Edinburgh Fringe Festival is on, when the military tattoo is in town, or when it's Hogmanay, aka New Year's Eve. And even though it's pretty cool to watch fireworks being blown over Edinburgh Castle on New Year's Eve, you'll certainly be paying through your nose for it. Also, if you are short on time and you don't have time to see all the attractions in this video, I do recommend that you take the tour bus. You'll get to see pretty much all the attractions and get a little bit of commentary to boot. Although it's a lot more fun to actually go inside these attractions themselves. And finally, because Scotland is technically a different country to England, you'll find that Scotland has different laws, some of them significantly more strict, such as anything to do with health, like the coronavirus restrictions, and Scottish drink driving laws are significantly tougher than those of England. Not that you'll be driving whilst you're here in Edinburgh. So guys, that was my complete tour of the city of Edinburgh. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. And if you've got any other ideas, feel free to tweet them at me. But otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode. Guys, I'm so fucking drunk right now, and it's only like 2 in the afternoon, but yeah, I am